After Kururugi's massacre kind of half caused the black water to overflow, the other half being Osei's love for Dr. Azo, the mountain became known as extremely haunted, with ghosts wandering the forest and many spirited away cases. The ghosts continued to perform the necessary rituals, though. Local girls were still lured to the mountain to become sacrifices, men were brought in to be joined in ghost marriages, and many visitors were influenced by the various ghosts to reenact previous suicides. A cable car and a modern road with a tunnel were added, but the construction of the tunnel was plagued with misfortune, the most noteworthy incident being a flood that killed many workers. A landslide was the final nail in the coffin, though, and they were forced to stop. The mountain was abandoned yet again. The unfathomable forest was fenced off, but nothing else was really done to stop people from going to the mountain. Even the police were reluctant to investigate disappearances, leading people to turn to psychics to help find their loved ones. The most prominent psychic we see in the game is Hisoka Kurosawa, a descendant of a super powerful shrine maiden that managed to escape Kururugi's massacre. This familial link gave her a sixth sense and gave her a base to build off of when she started training on how to shadow read. The mysterious old woman that trained her also left her the camera obscura that she and Yuri share throughout the game. I really want to know who this woman is. I hope to God they tell us one day. The timeline is so off, but if there is some way it could be right, even though they're only 18 years apart, oh my god, my little heart. Hisoka either inherited her antique shop or she opened it herself at 23 years old. Either way, that's awesome. Her skills at shadow reading became well known, and her shop became popular among schoolgirls who wanted their fortunes told and people looking for lost items. This is how she met Ren Hojo, an author and kind of folklorist and also one of the protagonists. Eventually, she was approached by a woman looking for a missing relative, Akari Narumi. I'm really bad at pronouncing Japanese names. I tried my hardest, I'm sorry. Hisoka traced Akari all the way up to the summit of Mount Hikami and found her standing on the cliff ledge overlooking what I think is the Shadow Spring. It's very hard to tell. If it's not the Shadow Spring, it is a large pool of black water at least, so it's even worse than normal water. Not that normal water would have been good either. Before Hisoka could reach her, though, Akari jumped to her death, leaving Hisoka so traumatized that she rarely took on missing person cases. Akari's relative understood and was just happy to have an answer to what happened at least, but Hisoka still could not handle it. Later on, Hisoka heard about high school student Yuri Kozukata from either her neighbor or someone at her school that had noticed that she had been missing for a few days. Sometime before this, Yuri had been in an accident that killed her entire family. Like Osei, she was left with the ability to see ghosts, but she definitely did not want this ability, so she went to the doctor. She thought she was cured, but no, definitely not. Just like Akari, Yuri tried to kill herself by jumping off a cliff, but was saved by Hisoka at the very last second. The two became friends, and Yuri moved in with Hisoka at her shop. At the start of the game in 2006, Hisoka is 23 and Yuri is 19. Hisoka seems to have healed a lot from the Akari incident, but Yuri is still understandably very reserved and kinda sad, honestly. Prior to the start of the game, Ren Hojo, the folklorist writer guy, asked his friend Kazuya Sakaki, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry, to go to the mountain and find an album of postmortem photographs for a book he was working on concerning the custom of burial photography. Sakaki made his way to the house of Keiji Watarai, an old folklorist, but instead of finding the photo album he was looking for, he found the cursed photo of Osei, the last great pillar. He instantly fell in love and called Ren to tell him that he was going to get married soon, and Ren was understandably very confused and concerned. How do you go to an abandoned mountain looking for a photo album and come back with a wife? What? Anyway, sometime later, Sakaki was summoned to the House of Joining, where he started to get cold feet but found himself in the marriage room anyway. Osei appeared to him, but in the middle of the ceremony, she rejected him, contorting his body without even touching him so that he could fit in his own reliquary. I'm not sure if this is better or worse than just being shoved violently into a box until you fit and breaking your bones that way. I feel like it is, though, but I'm not entirely sure why. After Sakaki went missing, Ren asked Hisoka to find not only him, but also the photo album. He really wanted that damn album, and he didn't really care if more people went missing in the process. Ren had been having a mysterious, extremely vivid dream of himself as a young boy, holding a knife, participating in a ritual where he approached a white-haired girl, and she fell into a box of black water for a long time. The dream creeped Ren the fuck out, and he couldn't stop thinking about whether or not he had killed the girl, so I feel like that might have contributed in some way to his recklessness. Maybe he had a feeling the photo album would confirm his suspicions that the event did in fact happen. In Chapter 1, Hisoka and Yuri go to what was once the Mikomori Hot Springs, the place where all the shrine maidens lived. Sometime around 1991, when people tried to turn the mountain into a tourist destination, the building was turned into an inn called Ichiru Manor. Part of the building was buried by the same landslide that forced the construction to stop, and on top of that, the landslide killed the family of the innkeeper, Tomoki Harakawa. He set the building on fire and then hung himself from the third-floor balcony. Henceforth, I will continue calling Ichiru Manor by its original name, Mikomori Hot Springs, for the sake of continuity. While there, Hisoka teaches Yuri how to use the camera obscura. After Yuri feels somewhat comfortable with using the camera, she and Hisoka go inside and Hisoka starts training her on how to shadow read. To shadow read, the person must first of all be a psychic, of course, and second of all have a token to connect them to the item or person they're looking for. These tokens have to be embedded with particularly strong residual memories and emotions to create the connection, and in the case of the photo album Ren wanted them to look at, the token was a picture of a young girl laying in a coffin with a bunch of flowers. Yuri uses the token to track down the photo album, but on their way out, they're attacked by the ghost of Tadahito Koizumi, who was actually an amalgamation of several souls that merged together in the black water. This is yet another fucked up side effect of the shadow spring overflowing. Yuri fights him off but is visibly shaken, and Hisoka feels awful and apologizes for asking Yuri to come. Sometime between the first and second chapters, Hisoka receives a missing persons case she can't refuse from a former regular, Fuyuhi Himino, regarding her best friend, Haruka Momose. Prior to the start of the game, Fuyuhi and Haruka, along with two other girls, were convinced by their friend Chiaki to kill themselves on Mount Hikami together. Apparently, Chiaki was under the influence of the Guardians and was compelled to recreate their deaths. I didn't go over the Guardians in the first part, so I'm sorry, but they were maidens that weren't sunk in reliquaries. Their job was actually to hold hands and surround the reliquary to guard it, but they drowned when the shadow spring overflowed and turned into vengeful spirits along with the rest of the ghosts. Only Fuyuhi and Haruka survived the group suicide, and they kept the incident secret for obvious reasons. The event scarred both of them horribly, but Haruka had a much harder time because she actually glanced her dead friend's memories. After this, the girl stopped visiting Hisoka, so she was probably very concerned when Fuyuhi called out of the blue to ask for help. Haruka's psychic ability, along with her kind and impressionable personality, made her a prime candidate for becoming an immortal flower, and that's exactly what happened. She saw the sunset over the mountain one day, just as she had on the day she almost died, and took it as a sign that she should go back and try to die a proper death and return to the water. She made her way to the womb cavern, where she was lured into a reliquary. Anyway, back in the kinda present, Hisoka has been missing for a day or two, and Yuri is understandably pretty concerned. She has no idea where Hisoka went until Fuyuhi stops by the shop to check on how the missing persons case is coming along. Yuri tells her that Hisoka is still out looking, and Fuyuhi decides to go to the mountain and look on her own. Yuri feels like she has no choice but to go after her, knowing that something bad will happen to Fuyuhi if she doesn't. Yuri finds Hisoka's camera obscura floating in the pool of purification and uses it to fight off ghosts as she shadow reads her way to Fuyuhi using a picture of her and Haruka. She eventually finds her in the unfathomable forest near the Shrine of Dolls, claiming that Haruka is nearby. On the way back to the antique shop, Yuri spots Hisoka's charm floating in the river. She picks it up and sees a vision of Hisoka wading through a lake in the fog, looking into the water. A ghost lunges at her and pulls her under, and Hisoka's camera floats down the mountain. While Yuri is distracted, Fuyuhi falls under the influence of Kirika Reisen, a woman who visited the mountain when it was still in working order to end her life and return to the water. She slit her throat under the supervision of a shrine maiden, and everything went fine until the shadow spring overflowed, at which point Kirika's soul became tainted. Fuyuhi finds the knife Kirika used to kill herself floating in the river, and when she picks it up, she sees Kirika's bloody ghost slitting her throat. Kirika takes control of the knife Fuyuhi is holding and forces her to kill herself in the same way. The sad thing is she might have had the power to resist had she not seen a vision of Haruka nearby. The distraction cost her her life. Afterwards, Yuri has to fight off Fuyuhi's nasty ghost, and after seeing the many dead bodies of maidens of black water falling from the waterfall into the pool of purification, she decides to just go home for the night. The next chapter follows Ren and his assistant, Rui Kagamiya, a boyish 17-year-old girl with a talent for managing data and a huge crush on Ren, who is apparently only 23 years old. I thought he was 30, honestly. Anyway, after Ren receives the photo album from Hisoka, he goes through it and finds a photo of the ritual he keeps dreaming about, confirming that it did indeed happen. And he also finds Osei's photo, who he swears to God looked at him and smiled. What the heck? Desperate for more information, Ren takes Rui with him to investigate Mikomori Hot Springs for himself, but all he finds out is the history of the innkeeper. Tomoki's ghost actually takes control of Rui towards the end of the chapter and almost gets her to hang herself in the same way he did, on the 3rd floor balcony, but thankfully Ren stops her from doing it just in the nick of time and they get the fuck out of there. Back to Yuri's storyline, she looks for a token to use to find Hisoka and ends up finding a missing persons file on Hisoka's desk and discovers Hisoka was looking for Haruka, Fuyuhi's friend. She thinks back to what Fuyuhi said about Haruka being near the Shrine of Dolls, so she heads there and makes her way underneath to the womb cavern. She finds Haruka at one of the reliquaries, and they leave the mountain together safely this time. Back at the shop, Ren and Rui promise to be around as much as possible for Yuri while Hisoka is gone. Haruka thanks Yuri for saving her, but still seems extremely disoriented and thinks she can hear Fuyuhi singing their kindergarten graduation song from somewhere nearby. That night, Haruka leaves again, lured back to the mountain by Fuyuhi's spirit, and becomes an immortal flower. In the next chapter, Ren and Rui direct their investigation to the house where Sakaki found Osei's cursed photo, Keiji Watarai's house. Keiji was a folklorist researching Mount Hikami and had his own house built on the mountain. He became very close with the innkeeper, who helped him by collecting post-mortem photographs from nearby towns. Keiji found Osei's photo while exploring the mountain, and as usual, he was completely obsessed with her beauty and was summoned to the House of Joining to try out a ghost marriage. When Osei showed him her corrupted form, he was terrified and the marriage failed, so he was forced into a reliquary by the wedding celebrant and killed. After his death, even his house disappeared, but it still sometimes appears to visitors, such as Sakaki and Ren. Ren and Rui find their way to the house through the womb cavern, but they have no luck of finding Sakaki. They do learn, though, that they were both entranced with a photograph of a mysterious, beautiful woman, the same one Ren found in the photo album. At this point, Yuri is getting obsessed with going back to the mountain to rescue people and glancing as many souls as possible to distract her from her own pain. Focusing on other people's problems is one of the best distractions, but I'm sure this ends up taking a huge toll on her, which I will get to later. I'm kind of jumping the gun, I'm sorry. Anyway, while still looking for Hisoka, Yuri decides to try to find a girl named Miyu fucking Hinasaki.